What's going on, everyone? Happy freaking Sunday, week 10. Everything else you're celebrating. We got some Berlin action going on. White Lightning, Alec Pierce already scoring touchdowns. Of course, the rest of us still have some fancy lineups to get ready. So that is our goal here for the next hour or so. Answering your start-sit questions. Hopefully, again, make you a better fantasy manager and better person overall. As always, I'm joined by the one, the only, Chris Allen in the house to help us accomplish all of that. Happy Sunday, Chris.
I know we missed you last week, man. Me and LaMarca were over here kicking it. It's fine. We got through the show, and afterwards, honestly, I mean, having the more handsome co-host with me, I mean, I have to say, LaMarca sitting here on the ones and twos. I mean, it was just so much easier, like with him. No, I'm just kidding, Ed. No, it's good to have you back. Good to talk football. We already got some action, like you were saying. Alec Pierce getting into the end zone on a deep bomb from Daniel Jones. So we got some international action. We got late action later on this afternoon. Ready to dive into it. Let's help some folks with their start-sit questions.
100%, my friend. So good to be back with you all in the trenches. Appreciate you holding it down for me last week. But yeah, guys, just a quick summary of some of the, again, news we got from overnight. Expect to play despite having those questionable tags. Tedero McMillan, DeAndre Swift, Garrett Wilson, Harold Fannin, and Cedric Tillman back from IR. Also Aaron Jones, Cooper Kupp, maybe a little bit more iffy, but he should be out there. And Saquon Barkley and A.J. Brown are fully good to go. A bit more questionable. We just have that, allotment of Packers wide receivers, Matthew Golden, Dontavian Wicks, and Savion Williams ahead of Monday night. Would not be starting those guys if you could at all help it. It does seem like Alvin Kamara is more of a true questionable, but obviously based on how he's been playing anyway, certainly someone you shouldn't be dying to squeeze in the lineups as it is. Unfortunately, though, Chris, we do have some weather to, try to go ahead and get through. It seems like the Florida games could be experiencing typical Florida downpour. Who knows when it's exactly going to happen. And we also have the Giants-Chicago game potentially shaping up as one of those bad weather performances. So how concerned are you first about the Chicago game?
That's the one that I'm the most concerned about because I saw some tweets earlier from Kevin Roth over at Rotor Grinders talking about the snow and rain. That should all die down. I believe he indicated the same thing. That should all be down and also dried off like by the time of kickoff. But the thing that I am more concerned about is the wind. I'm looking at right now at the forecast, around 24 mile per hour winds. That should be somewhat in line with the stadium, so no chance for a cross breeze. But once you do get up past 20 miles per hour, that's where you do see play volume, pass rate over expectation, even completion percentage over expectation. Those things start to tick down for both teams that should be involved. And we've already seen that from Caleb Williams earlier. I believe it was back in week 7 when they played against the Saints in Soldier Field. The winds were around like 18, 19, 20 miles per hour. And that's when actually Williams, his pass rate over expectation dipped down to about -7, -10%. And also even their pass volume in neutral scripts, because they wound up winning that game against the Saints handily. But even when things were somewhat in contention, we didn't see as much passing downfield or even much pass volume at all from Williams. So if you are holding on to, I would say, the ancillary guys like Olamide Zaccheaus after his good game from Cincinnati, maybe even you're trying to decide between Colston Loveland and any of the other tight ends that you might have access to on the waiver wire because Cole Kmet is going to be back in this game. That's where I would at least consider other options versus trying to get as many pieces going up against the Giants passing game as possible.
And situation where you're still starting Rome Odunze regardless, and hopefully those Bears running backs can get going. But for everyone else, could be a little bit iffy there in the Windy City. And then for the Florida games, Chris, you actually had an interesting take, I should say, on these scenarios before we got started here. It seems like, yes, there could be rain, but as how often happens in Florida, also could be some lightning there, which makes you a little bit less concerned.
Yeah, so I've seen some of this stuff happen in the past where it's either Tampa, Jacksonville, or Miami, where there should be a heavy downpour in this game, and we're seeing that for the Miami game later today, where actually the forecast shows 0.23 inches per hour, which is a pretty heavy downpour, which they're expecting around kickoff. So those are the types of extreme situations where more run heavy, very little passing, and also the potential for, I would say, any of those chaotic events where it could be tip balls for interceptions, fumbles, and things of that nature. But for Miami and any of the Florida games where we've seen that type of stuff, there's also been isolated thunderstorms or scattered lightning storms as well, where when that does happen, they've actually pulled the teams inside. They wait an hour and then have them go back out. So by that time, most of those poor conditions have already passed. So they're not going to have to play in those types of conditions. And with the way the forecast is looking right now for Miami specifically, isolated thunderstorms and scattered thunderstorms throughout most of the afternoon. So even if it does rain, there's a potential for both teams to not even have to play in it, and just the game extends a little bit longer into the afternoon. So I'm not as worried about it. So even if it does happen, I would say just wait and see if they wind up having that sort of game delay, which will keep them out of the rain.
Yeah, I'm planning on keeping things maybe a little bit closer to kickoff, but otherwise, that Bears Giants game is the only one I am actively downgrading. So, with that, everyone, let's get into it. As always, we are talking through our ranks live over at fantasylife.com alongside myself and the rest of our alleged expert rankers. Again, just trying to help make you a scholar a little bit smarter as we get into Sunday. So, always appreciate when you can add the non PPR, half PPR, whatever. But with that, let's get after it. Chris, the Ocho's got the first question. Is he overthinking starting Hurts over Dart, or is Dart versus the Bears bad defense worth the start? We can essentially have Jalen Hurts and Jackson Dart as our QB 5 and 6 overall. So obviously 2 good options. That said, Chris, we all do also have Jalen Hurts over Dart, with the exception of Friedman, who's always trying to do hipster shit like that anyway. Towards Jalen Hurts here, Chris. How about you?
I'm leaning towards Jalen Hurts, even with the potential bad matchup going up against the Packers, mostly just because he also has the same rushing ability that you get from Dart, but also we've seen the increased passing efficiency from Hurts over the past couple of weeks. Even with the shuffling along the offensive line, Hurts has been under center on around 40% of his dropbacks. And even when opposing teams have blitzed him, I mean, he's just been almost immaculate against pressure. 5 touchdowns against the blitz over his past 2 games. So even though I do have some general concerns about what the down to down success rate might be for somebody like Hurts, I would still say the explosive should be there. AJ Brown fully practiced throughout the week. Of course, you've got Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert as options as well. So I would expect more from Jalen Hurts as a passer, at least enough to keep him over Dart. So I understand the concern, but I still lean Hurts over Dart, at least for week 10.
Our guy Wesley in full point PPR, Gatson or Monungai. I actually lean towards Monungai here. Okay, Swift is expected to play through the questionable tag. We heard about the groin, then he also had a personal situation pop up. He should be out there. I'm not expecting him to be phased out or anything like that, just because Monungai went off against the Bengals. But that said, given the elements and given the potential, as Chris was talking about earlier in the weather, for the Bears to continue to embrace this run heavy identity, I just got Monungai a little bit ahead.
Yeah, and I even think head coach Ben Johnson came out in the media earlier last week and said something along the lines of he understands riding the hot hand or something along those lines. So it's not to really say that Monungai is going to take the job. To your point, Hart, it's more of he played well last week. Swift is still trying to manage that groin injury. So what would be the advantage for the Bears to try and put Swift back into that heavy workload that he had leading into week 8 before he wound up re-aggravating and having him sit out week 9? So I think it's more of we should see Monungai get the start. Swift will mix in, but as we're already thinking through this being more of a run-heavy type of script, given the winds going across Soldier Field, I would say that I'll give it more to Monungai. Even though for as well as Gadsden has played, don't get me wrong, I still think if you're looking for the safer floor of touches, I'd say I'd give it to Monungai.
And then one thing that also goes into Monungai for me, also shout out to those of us maybe joining us on X. Biz wants to know Gatson or Kincaid. I have Kincaid one spot ahead of Gatson. I'm not, that's not consensus among the Fantasy Life rankers, so it really is close. But for me, Chris, I do try to pay attention to these man zone splits at their extremes. And the Steelers are one of these defenses who do end up using man coverage more than just about anyone else. So when I do look at that matchup and just look at the performance from the Chargers pass catchers, Gatson this year only has a 4% target share against man coverage, 15% against zone. So it is a situation where I think this profile is a bit more of a Lad McConkey, a bit more of a Keenan Allen game. Not that Gaston couldn't make the most out of, one of his 3 or 4 targets, because we know the dude is talented. But for me, him versus Kincaid, I would go with Kincaid there. How about you, Chris?
Kincaid has been more of the pass catcher one for Josh Allen over these past 3-4 weeks after dealing with that oblique injury. It really is just Dalton Kincaid and Khalil Shakir. I know that you've got Keon Coleman running routes, and I think Joshua Palmer is supposed to be back, and Elijah Moore is still catching bombs even in this day and age. But still, it's when Josh Allen is trying to drop back to pass, it really is just between Shakir and Kincaid. So I get the volume going to Kincaid more often than we would see for Gadsden. So I get that for sure.
Wesley also want to know Jennings or Monungai. So I would just say I have Monungai ahead of wide receivers like Stephon Diggs, Deebo Samuel, Wan'Dale Robinson, Quentin Johnston, Shakur, Keenan Dobbs, Jameson, and Jawan Jennings. So again, I'm sticking with Monungai ahead of kind of that wide receiver 3 tier.
I think that's fair. And with the Rams also, they traded for, I forget one of the Titans corners shortly before the deadline. So they have been trying to bolster their defense. And this is also going to be a divisional rematch. And so it's always kind of wonky trying to expect similar types of production from wide receivers when they go up against a divisional opponent again. So I would lean a bit towards Monungai in this one.
And the Start Sit tool agrees. And again, remember, whenever it agrees, we really do appreciate
That's
the
it.
services. When it doesn't, it's just a Start Sit tool. Chill out, everyone. Ocho does have a defense question. Patriots defense is starting, but should I pick up either the Rams or Ravens defense instead? Would have to drop Aubrey on bye week, though. No, I do not want to drop Brandon Aubrey. Even as someone who hates kickers more than the next person, more than anyone else in fantasy football, even I know enough to not drop Brandon Aubrey. So Patriots are okay, man. I know it's the Buccaneers and it's not great, but you still have two more good matchups for the Patriots before we got to consider cutting them. So Ravens are on a nice stretch as well. Rams are really good. Again, 1-for-1, I get preferring the Rams or Ravens this week, but I'm not cutting Aubrey, Chris. I'm not doing it.
No, I mean, I was surprised it was Cam Little that broke the field goal record
Right?
before Aubrey. I was really expecting that to happen, but still, no, we're not cutting Aubrey now.
Villain storyline brewing for Aubrey after he missed his chance to tie it up. All right, Mariota or Caleb. I am leaning towards Caleb still, Chris. I think the weather that, is obviously what Wesley was worried about certainly makes it closer, but it still is, consensus Caleb over Mariota. It's one of those things too, man, where as much as the Lions secondary I'm not concerned with, Aiden Hutchinson and company still can wreck the game on their own. So give me Caleb still.
Yeah, I would say just the floor for points lends itself a bit more to a guy like Caleb Williams, who can also scramble like Marcus Mariota. But I would say if we're trying to break ties in favor of who has the better pass catching core, even if the volume should be less, I mean, it has to be Caleb Williams with the full core of pass catchers available for him in this game.
Our guy Ross needs 2 from Tez Johnson, Quentin Johnston, Tedero McMillan, Jordan Addison, Stephon Diggs. So Tedero had this hamstring injury. It's come back that he's going to play. I'm still trying to see exactly where. So I moved him down actually behind Tez Johnson. He's also behind Quentin Johnston. Where do I have Diggs at? And I have Diggs up in that group as well. So my ranks say Diggs and Quentin Johnston. I think I'm okay with that. Funny how that works sometimes, Chris. What do you think?
I think Diggs is the easiest one out of that group, I would say, to lock that one in. Out of the rest of that, I probably would feel best about either Tet or Tez. Quentin Johnston, I think my issue with him is not just his weekly target share, but also the Chargers' offensive line. Jordan Addison, he's stuck with J.J. McCarthy, who can't throw for more than 160 yards in a single game. So that's where I think the ceiling and even potential floor for both those guys is kind of lower. So I say Diggs and probably Tet, but just for the volume, assuming the hamstring is good enough for him to play in this game. But I would say Diggs or Tez is probably the safer of the two.
Definitely Diggs, and then whoever you want to pick between the other 3,
Yeah.
I can totally get it. Would not go with Addison, which means Addison will probably have a great game. Also from Ross Hawkinson, Njoku or Colson Loveland. Remember, we do have a returning Cole Kmet. We also have Harold Fannin playing, and then we also have TJ Hawkinson still, unfortunately, being TJ Hawkinson this year. So, man, I have Njoku a few spots ahead of Hawkinson. I think I have Loveland ahead of both of them, though. So, yeah, just a situation, Chris, where I understand it could be a situation where Cole Kmet comes back or we just have the bad rain. There's a myriad of factors that could go wrong here, but it's not exactly, looking great for Njoku or Hawkinson either. So I'm willing to buy the hot hand from the 10th overall pick. How about you?
I think that's where I'm at as well, because even if there is a potential downgrade for the elements for the Chicago game, with the way that Loveland was able to play, just pinballing off of my Bengals defenders to get into the end zone, seeing how well he was both before the catch in terms of separation and after the catch as well, I would say that Loveland has both the floor and the ceiling that you would want out of the position. Whereas for Njoku and Hawkinson, it's just more of can they fall into the end zone, which with Hawkinson playing with J.J. McCarthy and him targeting tight ends a bit more, yes, it's possible. And the same thing for Njoku going up against a Jets defense that will be without Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner because of the trades that the Jets have made. Yeah, the situations are great, but I don't see the same floor-ceiling combination as you could with Loveland.
And then Bates over Santos, Ross. And that's the last time we're talking about kickers today. We appreciate you. From Gut Checker, Flex 1 and PPR. A lot of Gatson today. Gatson, Tedero McMillan, George Kittle, or Kenneth Walker. I know it hasn't been good, Chris. I just feel like George Kittle is due here. All right. I mean, look, it's a situation where he's certainly been in plenty of big games before against the Rams. I'm not saying they're a bad defense by any stretch, but just We've gone 3 games now. He only has 11 targets. I just don't expect that to continue. We have seen the 49ers not use Kittle as much as maybe they should have. And now when they're finally in a game that, again, is at the top of the NFC West here, still no Ricky Parasol, still no Brandon Ayuk. I just think it's a matter of when, not if, Kittle has one of these booms. So give me George Kittle here when I'm looking at a bunch of other guys that, again, I don't love for one reason or another.
Yeah, but at least the positive for Kittle is that he's still out there getting his cardio in. So the hamstring, I don't think is at least bothering him from a route to run standpoint. Been around 80% of the team's routes over the past 3 weeks since returning from the hamstring injury. And also his target share has slowly ticked up 9% in his first game back up to 18% just in week 9. So it's more just trying to get him in sync with Mac Jones. It'd be better if he was back with Brock Purdy, who was targeting him once they got into the red zone more often than not. But still, I'm with you. I think it's just let's give it some time to have him work back from that hamstring injury and just get more in sync with Mac Jones. But I think this should be the week for him to do it.
Xfinity Start Sit Tool said Tedero McMillan. So take that for what it's worth, gut checker. But yeah, we are losing some George Kittle.
I kind of saw that coming too because I saw LaMarca was putting your reaction to it. He was like, man, screw this tool, man. It's cool.
From Sky Raven 88. Des 88 for the Ravens. People don't forget. PPR need 2. Brees Hall, Kenneth Walker, Bill Krosky Merritt. We got Marvin Harrison and Debo. Also, JMO or all right, hold on. Let's focus on the first one. Need 2. Brees Hall, Kenneth Walker, Bill, hell no, Marv, and Debo. I think it's Brees Hall and probably Marv, Chris. How about you?
Yeah, I think that's it. We can't do Bill anymore after, what was it? Chris Rodriguez was a team captain this week or something along those lines. Yeah, Bill's out there. Yeah, rest in peace to Bill. But yeah, I would say Marvin Harrison and KW3. Well, no, I take that back. I do like Debo in this matchup, just how well that slot receivers have been able to get past the Lions defense so far. I know it's going to be something of an overall beatdown, but I do think that Harrison and Debo would probably be my 2. In PPR, I would say those are probably my 2.
And Jameson or Gadsden for the flex. He's already started McBride as a tight end. I do have Gadsden a few spots ahead of Jameson. That is about the right range, though.
Yeah, that's the tough part, because if you could help me to understand how the Lions, or if anybody can help me understand how the Lions are using him, and I know that we try not to get too sucked into trends, but just reading off Jameson Williams' target shares over the past 5 weeks, 32%, 4%, 27%, 7%, and then 15%. It's like, what's going on, man? If you could just give me just a steady floor of just 15% across the board, I would just be happy with that. But this oscillating back and forth of we're going to feature you, then you're going to be a role player. We're going to feature you, and then that's the part that I just can't get behind. So that's where I lean a bit more towards Gadsden for this week.
From our guy Ricardo, needs 2 to start. Aaron Jones, Zach Charbonnet, Woody Marks, and we also got Parker Washington, who again is going to be dealing with Jacoby Myers, not the best matchup in the world. So I'm leaning running backs here. Aaron Jones is going to play. Mm-hmm. Nick Chubb is also going to play. I guess Charbonnet could fall into the end zone a couple times. I have Aaron Jones. Ooh, Parker Washington actually appears first. Wow. I have Jones and Parker Washington, Chris. I did not know I had Parker that high. Yeah.
He still gets the slot role, though. So I would say that at least gives him some level of stability from a points scored perspective. So I would go with Parker Washington from that, for at least for that aspect of things. Then afterward, one of, I would say, either Woody Marks or Aaron Jones. I lean a bit more towards Aaron Jones because just seeing how well he looked as a rusher, but of course as a receiver for JJ McCarthy, I would say that he would be the better of those 2 options. Whereas with Charbonnet, it's just the split with Kenneth Walker, then also just how less efficient that the Seahawks rushing game has been so far over the past month or so. I'm just out on either of those 2 running backs, to be quite honest with you.
AC joint injury, but apparently minor enough for him to be ready to go. From our guy Greggy, hold on, what's this tool saying? All right, Aaron Jones and Parker, love it. All right, again,
we got
shout out Xfinity, shout out Start Sit, just one of the best tools in the business over here. From our guy Greggy, the Ocho, let's see, drop pass and play Ravens. All right, we're talking. Boys are being dudes in the chat. We appreciate you guys. From Sky Raven, PPR, Monangai, Diggs, or Shakir. Ooh, it's going to be close between Diggs and Monangai. Mm-hmm. Didn't I say I have Monangai a few spots ahead? Yeah, oh, my God. Monangai is my 47th player overall. Diggs is my 48th. So I leave Monangai.
There you go. I think that would be my call as well. And on the second one, I'm still going Kate Otten over Luke Musgrave. I know he should get the potential bump with Tucker Kraft out for the season, but there's a reason why Luke Musgrave fell to the back end of the entire Packers wide receiver or just pass catching group with Tucker Kraft active. And so even though he should be the tight end one for this team, that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to take on that Kraft role. At least I need to see it first before believing in it, starting him over a guy like Kate Otten.
We got some questions from our guy, Greggy. Good morning. Good morning, man. And no, unfortunately, I cannot grow a stash like that cowboy Dwayne. One time my razor actually broke on vacation. So I was like, oh, I might as well just have a mustache. But it's so blonde and pathetic that my family didn't even notice when I tried to do it. So no mustache for me. Full PPR predicted to win by about 10 points. Awesome question etiquette here. Pick one, Jameson Williams, Addison, or Vidal. I think when you're favored to win by 10 points, that's where I do lean towards the workhorse running back. So I want to say I have Vidal ranked, straight up better anyway, and I do. So give me Kamani Vidal, but especially as a favorite, Chris.
Yeah, for sure. I think because now we don't only have the offensive line issues for the Chargers. We saw quite a bit of Jarrett Patterson last week, so his hold on that Chargers backfield is something of a concern. So even though we haven't really seen or heard anything about Amari Hampton coming back, it's just more about can there be enough rushing lanes for Vidal to even be viable. So that's my concern for Vidal, where with even Tyler Shuck throwing, let's say, errant passes to Chris Olave, I still think without Rashid Shaheed, he should get enough volume to be at least better than Vidal in this week.
I'm with you on Olave over Vidal as well. From our guy, Devin needs one. Kenneth Walker, Kyle Monungai, or Jacoby Myers in full PPR. Also have Swift on this team if he plays. It does sound like Swift is going to play, man. And in that perspective, I think I'm going with DeAndre Swift over Kyle Monungai. So again, could it be flipped? Sure, but just Swift's looked great for 3 weeks before he got injured too, Chris. I don't think this takeover was imminent, and I don't think one great game is necessarily going to do it. Could it? Sure, but even the Rico Dowdle situation, even that is kind of what we're kind of saying could be like this. Even Rico did give the job back to Chuba, or at least it became a split thing for 2 weeks before they said, okay, fine, go ahead and take it. So different teams. I think it's going to look just more like Detroit and be 1A, 1B, and give me DeAndre Swift as a pass catcher.
Yeah, I would also agree with that, because if we didn't know that Ben Johnson came from Detroit, where they did try and have two, I would say not separate roles, but they had two different stylistic roles for the running backs that they had, and them trying to create the same thing in Chicago. That's at least the route I would assume that Ben Johnson is trying to go with Monungai and Swift. So no, I'm not going to say that Monungai is going to be there 60-70% of the share type of running back moving forward. It should be more of a split once we can get to the point where Swift is practicing fully and he's at least past the groin injury enough that he's capable of being active and, let's see, a larger contributor on game day.
We got Tyreek Hill and also our guy Greggy asking the same question, and it is a doozy. Vidal or Rachaad White? I have them directly next to each other in the ranks, Chris. I do lean Rachaad White. I know the Patriots, they haven't allowed a 50-yard rushing game to opposing running backs. They have been stout against the run. I get it. But I just think with Rachaad White, man, as much as, in the last game, Sean Tucker got a little bit more involved, that was also pretty extreme game script. I think the Bucs ended up winning that by 3 scores over the Saints. And White also got banged up a little bit early in that game, stayed in, but I think that has something to do with it. Still wound up with 15 touches as it was. So I just think Rachaad White is going to be the more likely dominant member of the backfield. I wouldn't say Kamani is exactly set up for success either against the Steelers with that banged up offensive line that Chris mentioned. So more than anything, I think a little bit more confident in White dominating the backfield and probably the overall scoring upside of the Buccaneers. So give me Rachaad White, but they're right next to each other.
Yeah, well, I would at least say for Rachaad White, he has the ability to catch passes out of the backfield, where not to say that Vidal can't do it, but how many receivers or options to Justin Herbert can we list off before we get to Vidal? Whereas with the Bucs, it really is Emeka Egbuka, Tez Johnson, Kate Otten, and then you're probably getting to White. So if he's really like the pass catcher 3-ish somewhere in there for the Bucs, whereas Vidal is option 4, 5, 6 somewhere in there, I would say that White has the better floor for touches. So even though he's been inefficient as a rusher, I have some concerns about what he can produce through there. I would say just from an opportunity standpoint, White is the better of the two.
And then finally, would go Tyron Tracy over Loveland, Greggy, but I hear it is kind of close. And then Tez Johnson versus Tedro McMillan. Again, that's the one, Chris, where I do lean a little bit towards Tez. I just think that I'm kind of trusting Baker Mayfield in that passing game, but I get it. I mean, I love Tedro McMillan. It makes me sad seeing how often I actually drafted this dude in August as I go through my teams on Sunday morning to make my lineups right. So still believe in the dude, but give me Tez.
Yeah, and I think it's just more for how they create fantasy points. Whereas Tez Johnson, you can see him beating a safety or a corner from the outside and catching a deep shot from Baker Mayfield and getting into the end zone. Whereas for Ted McMillan, they've been trying to adjust his role over the past 3-4 weeks instead of using him on in breakers because he is attached to a short statured quarterback. It's been more on the like outbreaking routes and or go routes over the past like 3 or 4 weeks. So with him being more in that type of role of we'll get him on the perimeter and see what he can do after the catch, I think that's become a little bit harder for him to sustain his ability to create fantasy points. So I completely understand Ted is the better talent, but I think Tez is in the better situation for fantasy scoring.
From our guy Eric Hurts or Darnold, I'm assuming. Yeah. Well, give us Jalen Hurts, bro. Sam Darnold in a good situation, but even our, most bullish, bearish, I always get those confused. Whatever ranker we have Freeman that is lowest, I should say, on Jalen Hurts is even still ahead of Sam Darnold. So give us Jalen Hurts. Chris, one last question to you. What's your go-to fall beer he needs to swap off?
That has to be from Greggy, isn't it? Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. If for fall beer, Southern Tier's Pumpkin has probably been one of my favorites over the year. A little bit higher ABV for at least for what I like try and drink from a session standpoint. But for flavor, for something that really gets you into the fall spirit, like that type of thing, probably Southern Tier's Pumpkin is probably one of my favorites. Either that or if I can think of a second one, there's another winter warmer that I can that I'll have to look up. But yeah, that the Pumpkin is the one that immediately comes to mind.
I will say that as much as I do love an Oktoberfest, give me the 73 Kolsch, the Joe Thomas Great Lakes beer that they've actually now started out in 12 packs. They bring that around this season, and I absolutely love it. So producer LaMarca says Bush Apple, so appreciate that, LaMarca. From our guy Mike, half PPR needs a wide receiver and a flex. So pick two, Tedro McMillan, Quentin Johnston, David Montgomery. Fantastic spot for Montgomery, just again expected to beat the crap out of the Commanders, would expect him to be able to fall into the end zone at least once, if not twice. So give me Monty. I'm taking QJ in this one, Chris. I know it's been a bit boomer busty here, but I just think that, again, you look at that Steelers defense. They've been worse than the Cowboys in fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. Do you know how freaking hard that is to do? So, again, I get the allure for Tedro McMillan, obviously the more clear number one, but especially with the hamstring thing on top of it, man, just give me QJ.
Yeah, you could see this as being more of a matchup where they load up Rico Dowdle for 30 touches, and that's how they try and escape this game with a W. Whereas for the Chargers, we have seen, at least in the first 4 weeks or so, when Justin Herbert was under pressure, he was extending plays, not just extending plays to trying to look downfield, but like farther downfield, like 10, 12, like 15 air yards per attempt, that type of thing when put under pressure. And if we've seen from if the Steelers' history has been any indication, they've been beat by a lot of guys that have been able to get by them on the perimeter, whether it was T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, any of those other receivers that they've kind of come up against. I would say like QJ, while it might not look great from a down-to-down standpoint, it might be more Ladd McConkey or Rondé Gadsden, those types of guys. But if the pressure does break down and Herbert does try and extend and break something loose and try and get downfield, it is probably going to go to Quentin Johnston.
For the record, Xfinity Start Sit Tool is saying Monty and Tedro McMillan.
Hater.
Dwayne's projections, once again, trying to freaking undermine me on my own show on Sunday morning, for crying out loud, Chris. Unbelievable.
Can't get away from that
Zach,
guy.
Right, come on. From Zach, Tez Johnson or Parker Washington. I'm pretty good with Tez in this situation. Again, if we hadn't had the Jacoby trade, or even if it was just a better matchup than against the Houston Texans, I can get going with Parker, but give me Tez here.
Yeah, should be more in sync with Baker Mayfield after the bye. Should be a higher like pass rate over expectation for him. So yeah, give me Tez Johnson over Parker.
From Shaolin Joey, non-PPR, Dalton Kincaid or Chris Olave. Needs upside, playing against Alec Pierce. Yeah, that's always a tough one to swallow. Yeah. So Kincaid or Olave, I still lean Olave. Look, Kincaid is crushing it, but the problem is we're talking about Olave quite literally maybe having 4 times as many targets out there.
Yeah, it's just the pushback from anybody would just be the quality of targets with Tyler Shuck throwing you the ball. But I get
Yeah.
it. From a volume standpoint, Chris Olave should grade out as the better of the two options. So yeah, I'm with that for sure.
Chuck threw a couple okay balls. He might have been down 21 points in the second half when it finally happened. So I understand not everyone getting to
Yeah,
it, but it wasn't too bad.
that's yeah.
Also, thoughts on Jordan Mason if Aaron Jones cannot go today. So we expect Aaron Jones, based on what we've heard, to be going. Let's say we live in a world where he does happen to miss. I would get Mason. He'd probably be around Kyle Monangai. I think I would start Mason ahead. Guys like Kamara, Kenneth Walker, Tyron Tracy. I don't think I could get Mason ahead of David Montgomery, Rashad White, Kamani Vidal. How about that? About the right range for you, Chris?
That seems right. The names you were listing off, I think I can get behind that because even before Aaron Jones came back, Jordan Mason's adjusted yards after contact per attempt were starting to dip. Forced missed tackle rate was starting to dip. So, and also we had seen, oh my gosh, who's the other? It's not Xavier Scott was also mixing in as a pass catcher, and he was used like somewhere like in the red zone as well before Aaron Jones returned. So I would say that those guys, the guys that you listed ahead of him, like Monty and those guys, I would feel more comfortable starting them over Jordan Mason.
Greggy's already getting me pissed off because I realize again, Chris, we got 3 games in the late afternoon spot. How hard is this? Why do we need 7 at 1 p.m.? Give me at least 4.
Yes.
Not asking that much. So I guess they want to protect their game of the week or some other communist BS. I don't freaking know. All right. From Justin, full PPR, Henderson or Tracy. I lean Travion Henderson. Even before this report saying that they're going to give Henderson more work, he got 75% of the snaps last week. I think he had 20 combined carries and targets. That's plenty, Chris. I don't love that it's going up against Vita Vea and company. But honestly, Tampa Bay has given up quite a few, fantasy points per game to running backs. I think they're like the 8th worst team because they're giving up more receiving work to almost any of them. So Travion had gone like 2 weeks before last week without even a catch, which that was the part that just blew my mind. Again, not, L taken. I've done it like 20 times on shows this year. I get it, guys. Travion Henderson pick was bad. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it was good, even if he has a good second half of the season. But it just shocked me how even with Ramondre taking more work, like he couldn't get Henderson gadgety types of touches. We're not throwing up 2 screens a game, stuff like that. But hey, Ramondre out of the picture, Chris. Give me Travion because unfortunately that Tracy usage last week wasn't what we were hoping for.
Seeing Devin Singletary as like moved into the goal line role, that was really a crusher, which I didn't see coming, and I'll definitely take the L for that one. I really didn't think that a NFL head coach with just 2 running backs active on game day would try and use both of them to the point where one of them wound up getting injured at one point during the game, and you'd be stuck with just one running back. I did not think an NFL coach would actually do that, but still. I digress. Travion Henderson should be the better of the 2 options. 5 targets last week, just short of a 20% target share. And if there's any way that you're going to get past the Bucs defense, it should be through the air and not on the ground. So I would say the usage and also the opportunity kind of lends itself to Henderson as being the better of the 2.
Blockbuster manager. Shout out to you, man. I miss Blockbuster. Chris Olave or Lad McConkey in non-PPR. Give me Lad here. I think we're looking at similar opportunity and just so much better in that matchup. Steelers consensus over here. From our guy Papa, full PPR, probably an underdog. We got Jacoby Myers, Kyle Williams, or Xavier Legette. Especially if T-Mac is out. I hear you. We don't expect T-Mac to be out though.
Yeah.
Gosh, full PPR. Probably an underdog. I think Jacoby makes the most sense. I'm guessing that's what our Xfinity Start Sit tool will say. I got to go Jacoby, Chris. As much as I like the idea of throwing a dart at Kyle Williams, we got John Daigle's, infamous / famous. I love it. His midnight, F around and find out call. He loves some Kyle Williams, but that is more so like $3,000 DraftKings like dart sort of play. I think just raw projections. Give me Jacoby Myers still.
That man comes up with just the weirdest wide receiver plays like late at night. I know he just probably takes a gummy and just starts like scrolling through like DraftKings and just scrolls all the way down to the bottom. And it's like, okay, well, who can I pick out? Love that man to death, and I can't wait to hang out with him at some point here in the off season. But that's just the stuff. It's just like I can't follow you there, brother. I just can't do it. So now give me Jacoby Myers, even though it's going to be his first game. with Trevor Lawrence. He is going to play more on the outside because reports show that Parker Washington is going to get the coveted slot role for the Jags. So he should see a bit of Derek Stingley instead. But from a volume standpoint, I do think it's going to be Myers as a better versus trying to throw a dart at Kyle Williams. Drake May has so many other pass catchers outside, even with Kayshon Boutte out, that I can't trust Kyle Williams over any of these other guys. So no, I would say Jacoby Myers.
Then rest of the season, Caleb Williams, Joe Flacco, JJ McCarthy. I think it's in that order. You could argue Flacco over Caleb, honestly. I'm gonna side with Caleb because I think we've seen enough flashes and obviously have a much higher rushing floor. Although when Flacco's been taking off, Chris, he's been doing his thing out there. So Caleb, Flacco, McCarthy. The one thing I would say with McCarthy is he does have the best schedule in terms of just fantasy points against, and he's been running on his own as well. But again, don't think he's quite up in that same tier. How about you?
No, the hope would be that, so in this game against the Ravens, let's assume that the Ravens are able to get ahead and we start to see just some different behavior from JJ McCarthy in terms of they start to open up the playbook, he passes a bit more, because we haven't really seen him in a negative game strip yet. They've more or less been within like a 1 to 2-ish score like type of situation in each of his starts so far. So if the Ravens really pull that out of him, maybe we do see the level of confidence that we would hope for him and they starts to pass a bit more. And that's where we get more production or a larger pie for guys like Jordan Addison and even TJ Hawkinson to eat afterwards. So, but we just haven't seen it yet. So I'd go Caleb for right now.
By the way, guys, Rap Sheet has confirmed that Aaron Jones is expecting to play today. Not a surprise. Good news there. And also, yeah, Justin Fields starting for the Jets. Who would have thought? I mean, just what an incredible, competitive advantage, Chris, that, Aaron Glenn has now created for his team. Great stuff there. From Greek, Vidal or Otten in half PPR. Come on, Vidal, pretty comfortably.
Yeah, Vidal for sure. I would, but is some, I would say if it was full point PPR, I would go for Cade Otton just for the lack of options for Baker Mayfield. But for right now, just looking for a safe floor touches, I'll go Kamani.
It is amazing to me how Otton just steps up after doing literally nothing when they have these wide receivers out there. So all due respect to Cade Otton, but man, don't see many other examples like that. Our guy J-Cap needs 1 RB and 1 flex. Breece, Dowdle, and Waddle. You're 100% starting Dowdle. So now we're between Breece and Jalen Waddle here. I have Breece just a couple spots ahead of Waddle. It's close. Waddle's like the next wide receiver I have after that kind of tier of running backs. I guess for me, it's just like could have some potential weather issues going on there. It's not a good matchup for Breece on the ground, but at the same time, this Jets defense is so bad all of a sudden could be turning into constant shootouts with all of these Jets games. So I think just you look at Waddle and Tua, and they've been so miserable against the Bills, Chris. So I don't know if it's necessarily a defense we need to overly fear, but at the same time, they look pretty darn good against Kansas City last week. So just I don't want to say the Jets offensive environment is better than the Dolphins, but I don't know. I don't think it's like potentially too much worse than what we're usually looking at. So we got Rico Dowdle staring at us. And of course, our lovely start sit tool is going against me, making me look stupid in front of my friends, Rico Dowdle and Jalen Waddle. So I lean Breece, but it is admittedly pretty close, Chris.
No, and I also lean Breece because it's more of it's not a talent situation with Jalen Waddle. It's just his offensive situation because of how Tua can get so rattled in the pocket once he faces pressure. That's where I just have the concerns for Waddle because he can beat the Bills secondary on outbreakers and continue to rack up catches and yards from that standpoint. But it's just, can Tua really get the ball to him that often? And that's I actually wrote up Jalen Waddle as a guy to potentially try and avoid or just mitigate a lower performance from Jalen Waddle in this week's wide receiver cornerbacks matchups column that I write. But I would just rather take the opportunity for Breece over Waddle, even though there is that potential upside. Like Waddle is a good receiver. It's just that he's on a lesser passing game. That's the way I'd put it.
My ranks too, and I kind of figured most people would just be having to start him regardless, but this is a rare situation where you got someone like Breece. I do think that would warrant going over Waddle. Appreciate you, J-Cap. From Bring P1U, pick 2. I'm always afraid when I can't read these names at the first, site, Chris, because it's going to make me say something very, very bad. But I think in this case, we're fine. Bring P1U, pick 2 running backs, either Bear, Kamani Vidal, or Aaron Jones. I lean Swift and Vidal. I would say I'm in a situation in one league where I think I end up I just put both my Bears running backs in there because like Christian Watson was the next guy. So I think Vidal is good enough to go ahead and lean 2. By the way, shout out Drake London. Nice touchdown catch. Hopefully just the wind knocked out of him. Give me Kamani Vidal and DeAndre Swift, Chris. Well, none guys close though.
Yeah, Manungai is close, but yeah, I would say Vidal for the workload, and then yeah, Swift, assuming that with him active and also going against a Giants defense. I thought they're going to be missing a couple of defenders, like one interior guy, and also I believe one of their corners is going to be out too. So the Bears rush game should be solid, and of course, opportunity for Kamani Vidal. So yeah, I'll take that.
From our guy Jake, half point PPR needs 3. Oh man. Yeah, what kind of league are you in, bro? Good team, good management, whatever. Ladd, Kyron, Devontae, which, yeah, I mean, I think it's those 3, but we got to bench Quinshon Judkins. I don't want to
Right?
bench Quinshon Judkins, Chris. Oh, man. I might have Quinshon over Kyron.
That would make sense.
Oh, I have them right next to each other. We're not starting Tedero or ETN. It's between those 4.
Yeah.
Maybe Ladd. Actually, no. I think Ladd's the one I would probably be out on. I think give me Kyron, Devontae, and Judkins. I can't believe we're putting Ladd on the bench, but particularly in half point, that's enough of a tiebreaker for me between Judkins and Ladd.
Yeah, I would say go with the floor of the running backs there, and then the better of the wide receivers, and go with Devontae because those goal line fades. It's almost like a rush to see who gets more touches once they get inside the 5, inside the 10 between Kyron and Devontae. So yeah, give me the Rams guys for sure, and then of course Quinshon Judkins. Right.
Kudos to you for having some great options. Also from Bring, also given the Chargers corners out, would you play DK Metcalf over Debo or Marvin Harrison? I have Marv 2 spots ahead of Metcalf, man, so it is very close. I pushed back a little bit on the whole Jacoby Collar thing. I mean, again, it wasn't like that Cowboys game was the first time we saw Jacoby and Marv. We saw about 5 quarters worth of action against the Colts and against the Packers. Well, Marv saw 90 scoreless yards, but I don't know, man. He actually was starting to heat up with Collar. So regardless of all that, I'm more confident in Marv getting 7 to 8 targets at this point over DK Metcalf, who with all those tight ends and everything, and Rodgers getting the ball out quickly, doesn't seem to overly prioritize him. So I have it Marv, DK, and Debo. They're all pretty much in the same tier, though. How about you, Chris?
Yeah, I think that's the way I would go about it. Because even with Debo going up against the Lions, and I was talking earlier about like how poorly they've fared against slot receivers, I would say that the offensive environment for Harrison and DK probably lend themselves to more scoring opportunities. So yeah, I think I'd go. I think I'd go those guys. I think I'd go those guys. Yeah.
Okay, Justin, full PPR, Henderson or Tracy? I would lean Henderson there. Okay, gotta scroll down a little bit. Sorry, Jose at running back. He has Swift, Henderson, Monungai, Tracy, and Rashad White. Who should he start at the flex? If it's just between those guys, I think I'm still going Swift. Henderson would be close though. How about you, Chris?
Either one of Swift or Henderson. Monungai, we were talking earlier that it's going to be a mix between him and Swift, even though there should be plenty of volume with the win potentially limiting pass reps for Caleb Williams. But I would say Henderson in a more high scoring environment. I want to say the Bucks Pats game was one of the higher scoring games projected for today. So give me Henderson and Swift, I think, would probably be the one of it, since we're assuming he's going to wind up at least getting enough out of that Bears game to be the lead guy.
Are you concerned enough about the Chicago weather, Chris, to go Sam Darnold over Caleb Williams?
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think that's fair enough. Yeah. Because as efficient as Darnold has been on play action passes to JSN, now you've also got Rashid Shaheed mixing in with Torrey Horton expected to miss this game. And while the Cardinals defense, I think, has played really well, and not just since they were playing the Cowboys offense and limiting them, but over the course of the season, they have been fairly stingy to opposing passing games. I would say that Darnold would be the better of the two options between him and Caleb Williams.
I just, in fact, scooted Williams a little bit down in my ranks. It doesn't feel good, though, seeing, Bo Nix staring at you as a top 12 QB, Chris. So, yeah, get it together, Denver. Come on, placing the freaking Raiders out here. From Steven, would you drop Mason for Bill Krosky-Merritt in full PPR?
I can't do it.
Probably not, yeah, because I still think, like, how many injuries away is Bill at this point, bro? Eckler's done. They traded Robinson. You still can't carve this out. He's literally been the second least efficient running back these last 4 weeks after being the most efficient running back in the first 4. So just unfortunate. I think Jones has been banged up enough. And the Vikings, honestly, I still think there's a scenario we see the Vikings scoring as an above average offense down the stretch. And Mason, again, getting probably close to the same workload as Bill Krosky-Merritt. I just have more faith, I guess, in the Vikings and the Commanders at this point, Chris, without Jaden Daniels. That's what it comes down to.
Because we've seen now Jerry McNichols take some of the passing game and 2-minute role. Chris Rodriguez is getting the short yardage and goal line role. So even if you want to give Bill the between the 20s work, he hasn't been really efficient on that. And now they're going to go up against this Lions front seven that has also been fairly stout against the run. So I'm not seeing the upside for a guy like Krosky-Merritt. Whereas, as I was talking earlier about Jordan Mason and his lack of efficiency, at least if Aaron Jones gets nicked up again and is forced to miss time again this season, we do know that there's going to be a steady floor of touches for somebody like Jordan Mason. So the contingent upside is there for Mason, whereas I don't see it for Bill Krosky-Merritt. So no, I would still keep Mason.
Our guy Arthur wants to start 3, Swift or Monangai. Don't put Jacobs in this conversation. Come on, we're starting Jacobs. Start 2, Swift or Monangai, Charbonnet, DeMercado, Kamara. I almost lean towards starting both Bears running backs here, Chris. Kamara would be the other one. If he's playing, we still got that ankle thing hanging out there. But I think Swift is clearly the guy we want. And then Monangai versus like Charbonnet, I think we're seeing a similar workload. And I like the Bears' chances against the Giants, I would say, a little bit more on the ground. So give me Swift and Monangai. How about that?
Over those guys for sure, because DeMercado was still having to rotate with Bam Knight. So I would say that there's enough there that I'm not as confident in that game, especially going against the Seahawks defense that also has been bottom 12, if I remember correctly, in points per game allowed to opposing running backs. Charbonnet, we talked earlier, his split with Walker and also the lack of efficiency for both running backs. And then Jacobs, yeah, I would say for Jacobs, it's just the calf injury and going up against the Eagles. That's my concern. Eagles coming off a bye on top of that. So I'd say, in this scenario, starting two running backs from the same game or from the same team rather looks somewhat odd, but just given the context of their roster, I would say those guys are the better option out of that group.
Our guy Brad, I would say it's a desperation pick, man. We've all been there, though. No worries. It's a safe space. 2 running backs, PPR, Bam Knight, Amari DeMercado, Chuba Hubbard, Chris Rodriguez, or Terrell Jennings. I'm leaning DeMercado, who was getting more work by the end of the game last week, and probably the captain, Chris Rodriguez. Come on down at this point.
Yeah, and let's assume they're probably not even going to get into those types of situations where Commanders are banging on the doorstep of the Lions, trying to get into the end zone. But still, you do have to be somewhat concerned about like Krosky-Merritt and his workload. But short yardage situations should be there for Rodriguez, and we were talking earlier about the split for pretty much all the rest of those guys. So yeah, I'd say probably out of the Rodriguez. And who was the other guy you were thinking for this? Were you thinking Rodriguez and DeMercado or Yeah, okay, that's the guy that stuck out to me too.
Page from MDAV, start 2 in full PPR. Fannin, Shaheed, Kamara, Christian Watson, and Jordan Mason. I think I lean, assuming he plays Alvin Kamara and Christian Watson here. Again, just Aaron Jones is not a great matchup, for Jordan Mason. I know the Ravens have been bad this year, but they've been playing a lot better the last 3 weeks. So I'm going to call that not a great matchup. Shaheed, I just don't know how much they might need to use him a lot because I know Torrey Horton's out, and we'll see what happens with Cooper Kupp, but just could still be a 25% snap game. And then with Fannin coming off the injury and just, so give me Kamara and Christian Watson. How about you, Chris?
Yeah, I would say those are the ones because Shaheed, like you were saying, is just his first game, and we can just see where he might get a couple of deep shots from Sam Darnold, but you're living off of volatile plays. And I know there were some questions last week in the chat about recommending starting Torrey Horton with Cooper Kupp sideline. And it's just, he wound up getting into the end zone, but it was just on a limited target share. And that's where it becomes hard to recommend that from an analyst standpoint. Where with Christian Watson, we have seen the explosives already there between him and Jordan Love. So I do like that. And then also, like we were saying earlier, I mean, I do think while Kamara is banged up, at least the floor of touches should be there from him, even though it's going up against the Panthers defense. That's been pretty tough against the run so far the past 5 or 6 weeks.
Hey, and don't just take it from us, guys. Take it from the Xfinity Start Sit tool that is picking
blame them.
Christian Watson, Alvin Kamara. You heard it from Xfinity. Sky Raven, PPR, UG in parentheses. Love seeing that. Next to a Start Sit question. Malik Washington or Sterling Shepard. I have Malik just a few spots ahead here. I'm a little more confident in his floor. Yeah, give me Malik. How about you, Chris?
This Greg Dulcich erasure, I'm not going to have it, man. He has turned out to be the option for Tua Tagovailoa right now. Did you not see this man out here in 2025 catching passes over the middle of the field?
I am starting Greg Dulcich in my 32 team league. You don't need to tell me about Greg Dulcich. All right. I'm well aware of what this man's doing.
Yeah, that was the thing. I was like, really? Like Greg, that was when I learned that Greg Dulcich was on the Dolphins, was
Yep.
watching him catch passes in that primetime game. That was crazy. But no, I would say Sterling Shepard for his utility in the Bucks passing game, he still has to go up against. We talked earlier about Emeka Ibuka already leading that team, Tez Johnson being an option, Kate Otten as well, and of course Rashad White. So if he's mixing in as that fourth or fifth option, I would say that kind of lends itself to I'll push him down. Whereas Malik, even though Dulcich did pop up for a solid game, I would still put him as like the third-ish option behind Waddle, and then of course Devon Achane. He should mix in for a few more targets than Sterling Shepard.
Have consensus Malik ahead of Shepard, and 4 of our 5 rankers do in fact agree there. Appreciate you, Sky Raven. From Jose, okay, so we mentioned Caleb versus Darnold earlier. He also has Baker Mayfield. I still have Darnold one spot ahead of Baker. Maybe Baker gets back to running a little bit more now he's healed up from whatever, post-bye. But I just think the way Darnold and that Seahawks passing attack are cooking, man, I'm going to go ahead and take my chances there. So give me Darnold over Baker, but I have them right next to each other. How about you, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, because Darnold, it's just the way, like the amount of pass volume. I think he still sits at 26th or 27th in dropbacks per game because they're just hitting on so many of these deep, like intermediate and deep, like passing routes to JSN that he doesn't really need to pass all that often. I mean, I believe his average depth of target is something over 9 air yards per attempt, and he's still completing them. It's just a ridiculous amounts of efficiency for this passing game. So we'll just continue to ride that as long as we can, because with them adding firepower with Rashid Shaheed, him having familiarity with Clint Kubiak's passing game, playing with him when Kubiak was in New Orleans last year, I would say let's continue to ride this Darnold train. It's probably the wheels are going to fall off at some point, but even with the Vikings, we had to wait till week 14 for that to happen.
Jesse Bates, INT, your old boy, Chris. I cannot believe the Bengals let him get away. Like the way he leads the league in those freaking coming out of your screen from nowhere interceptions, man. I would hate to have to watch that on someone else's team, Chris. How do you feel about it?
I mean, you could just stop with "I can't believe the Bengals let," and then you can just insert whatever name afterwards. And it's just, I mean, Jermaine Pratt, who played for the Bengals up until last year, he was the one that scooped up the fumble earlier. It's just yeah. LaMarca in the chat said, yeah, you're allowed to pay defensive guys. I did not know that. I mean, as a Bengals fan, I didn't think that was possible.
All right, we got another one of these good questions, good problems to have. I think I have a good answer for you, though. From Trone Force, needs 2 wide receivers in the flex. Okay, so 3 total options here. Nico, Olave, Debo, Devonta, and then we got Jaylen Warren. We're going with Nico, and then I'm going with Devonta, and then I think Jaylen Warren, Chris. I think we're pretty consensus, Nico and Devonta Smith, the way he's been playing. Like, give me those 2 for sure, and then Warren versus Olave and Debo are where things get a little closer. All right, so this very flawed and, honestly offensive at times start sit tool is saying Warren, Debo, and Devonta Smith, but all joking aside, I guess I get the concern with Davis Mills under center, but I don't know, man. It's still Nico Collins. It's not a matchup. He's gone for over 100 yards in 4 straight against the Jaguars, bro. So I'm feeling those 3. How about you?
Yeah, I would say Warren is the one that I want to start the most. Over 60% of the carries in the past couple of games is really dusted off Caleb Johnson and kind of relegated Kenneth Gainwell into more of like the passing game, like 2-minute role type of thing. And so once they get into the red zone, it really has been Warren. So I think he's the best out of that group to start. And then kind of to your point earlier, Nico for his target share, even though it is, what was the tweet that you had? The next man up because of Davis Mills. It's just a hell of a tweet, man. Just well done by you, sir. But then afterwards, like Chris Olave and his projected target share without Rashid Shaheed also in that passing game. So I think those are the guys that I would want. I mean, Devonta is probably a close third. But if there was more uncertainty around A.J. Brown's availability in this game, I would probably elevate Devonta Smith. But I'd say it's Nico and then Olave, and then probably Devonta Smith would be the next one after that.
Try to clear out the rest of the chat while we still got some time. Appreciate you guys tuning in. And by the way, make sure you check us out tonight. Myself and Dwayne breaking down every single game here on the Fantasy Life Show. Little big man, Tedder McMillan or Woody Marks. We're going T-Mac a little bit ahead of Woody Marks there. Again, that is a decent gap. Also from Andres, Christian Kirk or DJ Moore in a full PPR. give me DJ Moore, Chris, particularly with the Davis Mills to, CJ Stroud situation. So, yep, DJ Moore there. From Bob, Fannin or Otten? I think given the injury and the Joku just being there, Chris, is Kate Otten pretty comfortably?
Yeah, Kate Otten for me. I mean, Fannin working through the hamstring injury. I think he had a DMP and then a limited practice or something along those lines, like coming into the weekend. David Njoku still on the roster, and he tweeted the "I'm not leaving" gif or whatever after he didn't get traded. So I would say that I'm lowering projections for Harold Fannin, whereas with DJ Moore, at least we should see some consistent output to him, even though it should be a potential fewer pass attempts for Caleb Williams in the windy game.
Also, Mike, I have Tedron McMillan one spot ahead of Kenneth Walker, so very close. I could get flexing him over KW3. That's a decision you got to make with yourself and God. PPR, Henry or Loveland? Oh man, probably Henry. Chris, I think I have Loveland higher though. It's just that weather.
Yeah. And you would have to think that even though Kayshon Boutte is going to be out for that game, and Boutte has been more of the deep shot guy, right? He's been the one that they've tried to hit like farther down the field. So it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be more targets available for Hunter Henry. But I do just like the overall game environment more for Hunter Henry than what we would see for Colston Loveland in their matchup against the Giants. It could just be more run heavy. Maybe he tries to work things back towards Roma Dunze, and there's not really a ton for Colston Loveland in this game. So between the two, I do lean Henry a bit more.
Our consensus ranks also lean Henry. Let's go with Henry. We do lean Swift just a little bit ahead of Monangai at the flex. Chad, Bill, or White in half PPR. Go ahead and give us Rashad White. Unfortunately, guys, Bill needs to earn his way back into the circle of trust. MDAV, sit one between Mason, Bill, and Woody. I think I'm probably sitting Bill, Chris.
Sitting Bill. And all the rest of those guys, you could at least tell yourself a story about how they get worked into the game in advantageous or fantasy productive situation where Mason still gets some of the goal line works. Marks is still involved in the passing game, whereas JCM, just between the 20 stuff, I don't want to do that for a running back.
Nico, Diggs, or Marv. We got some slander to Marv saying the Seahawks defense is going to shut him down again. He had a good game against the Hawks, 6-66-1. It was maybe the worst first half in NFL history. I get it. He came back at the end, made some nice catches. I'm leaning Nico and Marv here. How about you?
Yeah, wasn't that the game where he caught the touchdown and then just like it looked like just a weight had lifted off of his chest afterwards?
He caught it over Witherspoon, I think.
That's right. So yeah, I would say Nico is probably the one that I would be the least confident in just having to catch passes from Davis Mills. So Diggs or MHJ for me.
Sit one, Brees, ETN, and Monangai. This is a situation where I'm sitting Monangai.
Yeah, the floor for touches is there for both of those guys. And even though that Brees has the tougher matchup going up against Cleveland's defense, I would just still give it to those guys from an opportunity standpoint.
From Jen, Loveland or Fannin, we're going Loveland. From Chad, Juwan Jesus, my guy, Loveland or pick up Schultz, Ertz, Njoku, Musgrave, or Barner. I think of that group. Oh, man, I do like Juwan Jesus this week, but I'm probably still Loveland.
Loveland, I mean, you could tell yourself a story about Ertz just because no Terry McLaurin. He could get a bunch. It's just him and Debo really as the focal points for that passing offense. Musgrave, I need to see how he's going to get used in that Packers offense. Sands, Tucker Kraft, AJ Barner, unless you're expecting him to get push into the end zone on a week in, week out basis, I can't do that. So I'd say either Loveland or Johnson or Ertz. I think those are the three that I would go with.
Mento, we would go Monangai over Tracy. We're leading Swift over Monangai, little big man. Reggie, I think we're both going Jameson over Addison. It's just the more run first Vikings with McCarthy and everything there. Yeah. Not loving that. Tillman or Christian Watson? Give me Christian Watson this week. Just not exactly sure, if they're going to ease back Tillman.
Dylan doesn't pass it to wide receivers. Like Jerry Judy's just out there getting his cardio workout in.
I know, it's so bad, man. Drake May or Jalen Hurts. I'm still starting Jalen Hurts, man. May's awesome, but again, we can just get the 2 tush-push touchdowns. It doesn't even matter. Metcalf or Wandale. I think I lean Metcalf a little bit, Chris. We had the earlier about some of the Chargers guys being out. I like Wandale. I have him in the top 24, but it's DK Metcalf. And then also you add on the weather concerns in Chicago. Go ahead and give me Metcalf.
Yeah, even I would say it's good to see Wandale used in a different role than his typical PPR scam, just run 2 yards and then catch a pass and fall down type of thing. He has
Yeah.
been used farther downfield this season, but no, give me Metcalf.
Okay, pick one: Parker Washington, Cade Otton, or Vidal. I know last week sucked. I still lean Vidal in that group.
Yeah, I would like to see. It's just Parker Washington's matchup, even though he does get the slot role. Houston still has been tough against opposing wide receivers. Cade Otton, there's a mix of other pass catchers available to Baker Mayfield, so I'd say Vidal should be the guy here.
Need 2 in full PPR: Olave, Garrett, Zay, and Wandale. 3 rock solid wide receiver twos. Give me Zay and Garrett. Same page?
Yeah, just target share for Garrett coming off of his knee injury. That I would say that's the better of the two. And we were talking earlier about the quality of targets for Olave from Shuck. And then Zay, while he doesn't have a ton of upside once the Ravens get into the red zone, it's been more Mark Andrews or even Charlie freaking Kolar for whatever reason. At least in between the 20s, Zay has enough production there in order to get him a higher floor and potential higher ceiling if you can break off a longer run versus those other guys. So yeah, Zay and Garrett for me.
Craig, I do lean Montgomery over Monungai, Habibi, whatever. Full PPR, we are leaning Loveland over Musgrave. Jen, we're leaning Loveland over Fannin. Abe, Tez Johnson over Parker Washington. Crame, Monungai or Aaron Jones, Chris. That's about what I think I have them right next to each other.
Yeah, and I would say, I guess I would lean a bit more towards Monungai just for the defensive matchup. I think that's the only reason why I would lean. But I understand wanting to play Aaron Jones, but yeah.
We have had a comical amount of Monungai this morning. I get it.
I
I'm making
know.
some tough choices with it, but yeah, guys. So we got. I think I have a lot of mad people or a lot of appreciative ones, Chris. That's what we're here, though. We're here.
That's why we do it.
Appreciate you, Chad. All right, pick 2: Wandale, Keenan, Tracy. I'm going with the wide receivers. Wandale and Keenan.
Yes.
Swift over Rashad White. That one is close. Swift's got the matchup advantage. I think I'm leaning Swift. I think last week it was a lingering calf injury. He's practicing all this week. Mm-hmm. The personal thing, who the hell knows, Chris? He could have had a kid or something. Like, it can range from one thing to a million things. So
that's fair. And we are kind of assuming that there's going to be a bit more pass production for White, but it could just as easily go to the other options for Baker Mayfield. Yeah. So now give me Swift.
Singletary or Mason. That's where I would lean Mason just by a hair. Again, Loveland over Fannin. Yeah, Swift not playing would make a lot of people happy. That sounds like
100%. Yes, that would make things easier for all of us.
Monty, Etienne, Loveland, even in tight end premium, I think I'm still leaning Etienne there. Etienne looked fantastic last week, man. I know everyone's tooting to happen, but give us Etienne. Hall or Odunze projected to win by 60%. That does make it a little bit more interesting, Chris. I think under that sentiment, I probably would go Breece Hall.
I was leaning towards Breece Hall beforehand. Odunze, the hope would be that he gets mixed in a bit more, but again, it's just tough to trust his usage within that offense on a week in, week out basis. And we've been really advocating more for the running game, for either running game in this matchup. So yeah, give me Breece Hall.
Last note, Chris, our guy Greggy, Dark Chetslogger. Are you familiar?
I was actually looking at those. I've got a full list picked up from Beer Advocate right now. And so I'm going through it and see if next time I'm out at the grocery store or something like that, I'll see if I can pick one up.
And with that, going to wrap up this edition of the Fantasy Life Start Sit Hour. We'll be back every Sunday here, 10 a.m. Eastern. Hoping you guys get those fantasy lineups right ahead of our push for the playoffs. So appreciate it as always. Good luck this week. And, feel free to have a fun time as well. It is just fantasy football at the end of the day. So for Chris, for producer LaMarca, I'm Ian. Thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, take care, everybody.